Bulletin Board drivers, welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. This is where the real stories roll, straight from the blacktop.
Breaker 19 villains, you got your ears on. You're dialed in to the Channel 19 Experience. I'm your host, Tony. It's Saturday, August 24th, and this is episode number 27. This week's ride is inspired by a quote that's been rattling around in my head while working on this driver shortage series. If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. It's going to be a quicker episode this week because I'm gearing up for this whole series about the so-called driver shortage. But we're still loaded to the brim with 80,000 pounds of topics today. First, we'll hit the bulletin board with a couple quick stops, including a LinkedIn post that I got tagged in that turned into quite a conversation about how connected we really are. Then we'll switch gears, talk about pets for a minute, those fearless, faithful cab critters that ride shotgun with us on the road. In the pre-trip, we'll set the stage for the driver shortage series, where we're headed, why it matters. And then in the money line, I'll revisit my own personal trucking legacy to line up my story with where we're going with the series. Brake Safety Week is here. It starts today, the 24th, runs through August 30th, and that special focus this year is on drums and rotors. I've already seen a bunch of posts floating around on social media asking, is this normal? Make sure everything is adjusted, including your smiling, cheerful faces. This week, while I was piecing the show together, the soundtrack was all over the map. I started with a little Red Sovine, but man, that'll pluck at your heartstrings, and it's pretty hard to write a podcast or think about a podcast with that rolling. So I jumped over to some Luke Combs. Can I Get an Outlaw? Always gets me grinning. I'll share that link to an acoustic version I really like. And then it was back to trucking songs. Aaron Tippin's In Overdrive album. He redoes a bunch of older trucking songs that I like. So check those out if you get a chance. That album isn't on Spotify, curiously enough. I suspect it's over the Drill Here, Drill Now song, but who knows? Let's get this show on the road. If you're not driving, it's a great time to like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends.
Paper breaker 19, can I get a radio check? Pretty quiet out here on Channel 19. Well, there's a plain white rapper taking pictures at the state line. Hit the jake brake quick, we ain't paying no fines. The driver swing into the interstate, body shop south at exit 5. Building trucking ain't the same as it was. We're the last of our kind.
At the Mid-America Truck Show, I had the fortune to meet up with Mike Barber, founder of Truckers Wealth. Both of us have a passion for understanding the uniqueness of truckers and sharing our knowledge wherever we can. Mike is a seasoned financial professional. He has over 20 years of dedicated experience serving the trucking industry. Truckers Wealth has created a specialized financial hub where truckers can receive expert advice and tailored solutions to build wealth, minimize taxes, and secure lifetime income for themselves and their families. Check out his website, truckers-wealth.com, and look forward to seeing him on the program here soon. Grab that safety vest. It's time for the pre-trip. All right, villains, quote of the week. And I've got a few for you this week because they circled around that same truth we're about to explore. Oscar Wilde said, if you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. But here's the thing. Sometimes the truth isn't funny. That's when this one drops The Landing Gear by Gloria Steinem. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And then there's the one that keeps me up at night as we launch the driver shortage series from our old friend George Orwell. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. We're about to walk straight into the lion's den, villains. We're going to ask some questions that challenge powerful forces. We're going to shine a light on systems that profit from exploitation. And we're going to name things that usually go unnamed. Joseph Campbell put it this way: the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Well, this industry's got some dark caves, And the driver shortage narrative is one of them. And we're going in, flashlights on. The tension is real. There are distractions and traps everywhere. But there's a desperate need for honest and results moving conversation. The good news, this isn't a solo mission. There are lots of folks out there already telling the truth. And we're going to meet some of them, amplify others, and keep the focus where it belongs. I'll do my part, but this isn't about me. It's about us. We'll keep it light where we can, hence the pet discussion coming up. But we're not going to tiptoe around the truth. Not when drivers are suffering, while everyone pretends not to know why. So let's test Oscar Wilde's theory. Let's see if we can tell the truth and still be standing when it's all said and done. All right, first stop on the bulletin board. So I got tagged in a LinkedIn post this week by Brian Woodring, along with a few other folks who work at Love's. Here's what he pointed out. Love's was charging $3.74 a gallon for diesel, or $3.68 cash, while literally across the street, a competitor was charging $2.99. Brian gets 12 cents off with his rewards card at Love's, 12 cents. So he's still paying $3.62 while the station across the street is at $2.99. That's over 60 cents a gallon. Now here's the thing. Brian didn't know me or any of my coworkers that he tagged. He was just tagging people who work at Love's, trying to connect his perspective to actual people, not just some corporate entity. Smart move, and it worked. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I work at Love's in corporate IT for another couple weeks. I don't work in fuel pricing, but here's the truth. Volume discounts are how business works. Big fleets negotiate better rates. That's capitalism, no scandal there. And as Brian stated in the video, companies made their sales pitch on their marquees. And Brian is making his choice accordingly. But to me, what really matters here is what happened after. I reached out to Brian. We ended up talking for over an hour on Saturday. And let me tell you, he's an awesome guy, running his own trucks through these brutal times, but still finding the energy to connect across the industry. He goes to conferences, he's in conversations, amplifying the trucker story, our story. And I was able to connect Brian with people who actually do want to listen to his perspective and others like him. That's how change happens, person to person, connection by connection. And Brian said something that stuck with me. He talked about how powerful LinkedIn has been for him, how it opened doors into new circles, new discussions, bigger conversations. And that's why I've been hammering on LinkedIn here on the podcast the last few episodes, because it matters. Here's the challenge in trucking. We're scattered everywhere. Different time zones, different sleep schedules, no routine. You can't exactly set up a 3 p.m. Zoom call when half of us are driving, a quarter are sleeping, and the rest are fighting with dispatch. We're about as easy to organize as herding wet cats. But here's what I'm learning, and Brian's story proves it. We're all just one phone call away from each other. One LinkedIn message, one connection. The more people I talk to, truckers, execs, tech folks, owner-operators, the more I realize how many shared connections we already have. Years ago, it would have been a CB call away. Breaker, breaker, anybody know a driver named? But now it's LinkedIn, Facebook, a text message. Brian's out there building bridges, telling our story from the cab, between loads, because it matters. And that's the heart of this driver shortage series too. Using the tools we've got to have the conversations we need to have. So if you're not on LinkedIn yet, get on there. Start making connections. Because your voice matters, and there are people out there who actually want to hear it. We might be scattered across every highway in America, but we're still just 1 degree of separation apart. And speaking of connections, let's talk about our companions, the 4-legged, tail-wagging kind that keeps us company out here on the road. I see a lot of pet posts in the trucker social media community. I had a dog in the truck with me for a while. He grew up to be huge. It was a coffin sleeper truck, that 88 International that I had. It didn't work out, and a friend of mine took him. Actually, his parents took him. But I love pets, and I'm always more curious about other people's pets. We've got 2 dogs now, Gemma and Randy. Gemma's a German Shepherd, protective, skeptical, but loving when she decides you're worth it. Randy's a Sheltie, pure unconditional love. with a lion's heart when it comes to barking warnings. What I love most are those quirks that pets develop, those little rituals. They'll have you sitting there just wondering, what's going on in that little furry head of yours? And let's be honest, us truckers have spent a lot of time wondering what the heck's going on in other people's heads. Like Mr. Car Driver, did you realize how close to death you were today? This week it hit me differently, though. Kawana was off in Ohio for work. That's happened before, but this time it landed heavier for me. Maybe because she was really busy, working long hours, not texting much. And it hit me, man, this must be what it feels like for her when I'm gone. Whether it's my trucking days or all the work trips since, that loneliness is real. So I found myself paying more attention to the dogs and really noticing their quirks. Now, Gemma, she's always been really weird about eating, very picky, and she has her rituals. But here's the one that gets me every morning. They sleep in their crates at night and eat in there too. Otherwise, Randy would eat everything in sight. And when you give them their breakfast, Randy's on a mission. Food equals happiness, end of story. But Gemma, if you haven't given her what she considers adequate morning affection, she'll refuse to eat. She just lays down on the opposite end of her kennel and looks at you. Those German Shepherd eyes, they'll guilt you every time. So you open the door back up, give her all the love and scratches, and when she's satisfied, only then she'll walk back in on her own and eat. Don't you dare try to shortchange her on that morning love. Randy's got his own bizarre ritual. And I think it started because he's short. He's a Sheltie, about half Gemma's height. Randy loves towels. Not just any towels, towels in the laundry room. Especially ones coming out of the washer or dryer. He'll stand right under our front-loading machines, and he'll try to catch a rub as towels go from washer to dryer and dryer to basket. He fits perfectly under the door opening, stretches as tall as he can, trying to catch every possible towel rub. And if he doesn't get enough, he'll let you know. And if that's still not enough, he'll go find towels on the floor waiting for the wash and just roll around in them. Even Gemma's a little bit fascinated by this. She tries to get in on the action, but Randy won't give an inch. It's his towel time. And that's my dive into animal psychology this week. Lonely makes you notice things, I guess. So here's my ask. I'll make a post on social media. Share your pet's quirky behaviors. What weird rituals do your road dogs have? What makes you wonder what's going on in those furry little heads? Let's do a little community Dr. Phil this week. Because whether they're demanding morning affection or getting high on fresh laundry, these companions help keep us grounded. They remind us that there's more to life than miles and money. Sometimes there's just a really good towel rub, apparently. All right, villains, time for the main pre-trip. But instead of walking around the truck checking for problems, today we're walking around this entire industry. Here's the question that's been eating at me for years. And by the looks of all the social media posts, comments, books, and people willing to talk to me about it, it's been eating at a bunch of you too. Is there really a driver shortage, or are we afraid to enter the cave where the real problems live? Next week, I'm launching something that I've been working on for months, the driver shortage series. The air quotes driver shortage. It's the industry's favorite explanation for everything. Late freight, driver shortage. High turnover, driver shortage. Safety problems? Must be because driver shortage. But a lot of this doesn't add up. It kind of reminds me when a bull rack backs in beside you at the Petro. All that's missing is the stamping hooves. In every other industry, when there's a real shortage, wages go up. That's economics 101, supply and demand. Yet in trucking, we issue 80,000 new CDLs every year, while wages, real wages, stay flat or fall. How do we explain that? Maybe it's because we're solving the problems we're comfortable with. More training programs, new technology, different regulations, while avoiding the cave where the real monsters live. Systematic exploitation, wage suppression, and deliberate churn of human beings for profit. Over the next several weeks, we're going into that cave with flashlights, and we're going to map out what's really in there. We'll be talking about industry insiders who explain their innovative solutions and talk about what the real benefits are and who benefits, trucker investigators and their perspectives on what they found and have been willing to shine a light on. We're very blessed that there are a lot of really smart, determined truckers amongst us, drivers who've seen the industry from every angle and are willing to share their opinions on it. I've driven 1,000,000 miles, owned trucks, worked in operations, spent 15 years in trucking technology. I love this industry, but loving something means being honest about it. So we'll talk about things like how the shortage narrative covers for parallel labor markets operating on different rules, why certain violations get enforced while systemic exploitation gets ignored, the cottage industries that profit from churning through desperate drivers, how technology gets used to manage decline instead of improving conditions. Some of you might be thinking, Tony, aren't you biting the hand that feeds you? Well, truthfully, I hope not, because it's my reality in this. I'm about to start at Platform Science, a company that makes compliance technology. I've been in operational and compliance technology for 15 years. I know people across this space, Samsara, Isaac, Motive, Geotab, and I also know that they care. They hear your concerns, the challenging situations that these regulations create for you. But caring isn't enough if we can't have honest conversations about what's really happening. And ELD and technology are just part of the broader discussion. This series is going to challenge some assumptions, some positions, some sales pitches. It might make some folks angry. It's definitely going to make some people uncomfortable. Comfort is the enemy of change, and this industry needs change. But this isn't just about tearing down. Like Brian Woodring and I talked about, it's about building bridges. Yes, in some ways you could view Brian's video as sharp-edged, but it's facilitated discussion and it's honest and it has an opportunity to produce something more valuable than just a platitude. It's about finding the people, the companies, and the ideas that can actually move us forward. About imagining what trucking could be if we stopped accepting that's just how it is as an answer. Remember that Joseph Campbell quote from earlier? The treasure isn't more drivers. It's the truth about why they keep leaving and the possibility of an industry that doesn't consume its own. That's where we're headed, villains. But in the money line, let me tell you why this fight matters to me personally. We'll continue with my personal trucking journey that put me down in that cave and brought me face to face with some of these hard truths. Some of them I found by looking in the mirror. A quick spoiler, it doesn't end up with me as the hero or with a ticker tape parade. That's the pre-trip for this week. It took us a while. This thing's got more defects than a trailer that's been lost in the back lot for 3 years. But that's why this is a series and a group project. Get that seat adjusted. Let's push the buttons in. We've got work to do. Trans Carolina Permits is based out of North Carolina. They've been in business since 1977, and they've got a team with a ton of experience in all of our favorite part of trucking, which of course is the government. They provide a portfolio of services for the trucking industry, not to mention they have a compliance program. They'll help you with clearinghouse setup and queries, IFTA and mileage reporting, so your state-by-state mileage, your fuel purchase tracking, and get that wrapped up into a nice little bundle for quarterly filings. They're a one-stop shop for your trucking needs. You can find them on Facebook and LinkedIn, or check out their website, transcarolinapermits.com, or give them a call at 1-800-899-4870.
It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome back. Let's flip that turn signal on and drop the hammer in the money line this week. We left off my personal story with me in a brand new 1999 International 9400i model Eagle package. I was 22 years old, hungry to change my station in life. No college degree, but I had hustle and a CDL, and in 1998 that was enough. Trucking promised what nothing else could. Good money without needing that piece of paper. Leased on with a little outfit, running meat east, cheese back west, paper logs, cheap fuel. This was the dream. Why ever go home? One of the dispatchers, Buzz, he always called it a bonanza. We were making money hand over fist and piling that money up. Well, all the money except for what got spent on whiskey on Ripley Street in Lake Station. But here's what I wasn't calculating: the real cost per mile, not just fuel and tires. I'm talking about the 20, 22, 24-hour days, the relationships that withered, the life happening without me while I chased miles. The decent money looked good on paper until you divided it by the hours worked. And of course, about that time, I thought I was a genius. Save for a rainy day? Nah, let's double down. Let's buy some more trucks. And right there, that's when that one-way train picked up speed. Trucking's easy to get into, but can be hard to leave. And each truck I bought was another chain. The deeper in you get, the fewer exits you see. I leased on to a different company, one that was a little more friendly to a master contractor situation. Running Minnesota to Florida, turkeys down, produce up. Mix in some Midwest milk runs out of Illinois. But that few trucks is kind of a trap. Too few to get me off the road sustainably. Enough to run me ragged day and night trying to make a buck with the few that I had. And Brian and I, we talked about this on Saturday. He's dealing with a similar problem at the point he's at. But for me at that time, credit was free flowing. Truckers were good investment. So I bought more trucks, scaled up. Now I had more than a dozen. The plan was working. The company I was leased to had a guy who was great at sales, great at finding freight, great at the talking part of the game, and I was starting to get good at running trucks and drivers. Eventually, I got tired of my trucks competing with all the Minnesota guys and that stretch between Chicago and Minnesota. But here's the truth I need to own. I was cutting corners. Paper logs, pushing hours, who wasn't? Almost everyone operated in that gray area where regulations and human nature run up against reality. It's like the speed limit says 55, but everyone runs 62. You pick your spot in the gray. And when things got tougher, I moved my line too. Other people were cutting more corners, so I'd cut a few more to stay competitive. Then they'd cut some more, and the race to the bottom continued. There were things I wouldn't do, lines I wouldn't cross, but others would, and they'd get the loads. So you either compromise your principles or lose your business. That's the trap. So I moved my operation to Illinois, added some more trucks, ultimately scaled up some more, moved the operation out of my townhouse, got a real office, and started a spotting business. All of a sudden, I'm running a multi-million-dollar operation, the American dream. But it's starting to vibrate, and each day, a few new spots were showing up on the pavement. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this or deflect the blame onto the system. I made a lot of choices. I own a lot of the ultimate nails that put my business in its coffin. I didn't do the worst of it, but I was no hero either. Ultimately, I went bankrupt. But it's important to understand the steps on the way to insolvency because a lot of them still exist in today's system. As the economy weakened, as the dot-com bubble was popping, shifts started in trucking. We were hauling food, so we were insulated for a little while. But as other parts of the economy fell apart, the trucking capacity started migrating to reefers. I don't know if you all remember it, but when the stock market was crashing and all these imaginary companies, these website companies were going under, losing massive amounts of volume. Like I was on the outskirts of Chicago at the time, and traffic will get screwed up on a daily basis because people were so desperate they were committing suicide off of the bridges onto the freeway. I mean, that's what it was like for some sectors of the economy at that point. Wall Street traders in particular. Fortunes were being lost. So our rates started dropping too. Then the company I was leased to, they started short paying their settlements. And for months, it became a cat and mouse game, trying to get paid. And they had the leverage because they had the money. So we would go through bouts of me threatening to hold loads hostage until I got a check in the mail. Then those checks got lost in the mail. Cash flow on my side got tighter. Now I had to threaten a strike to get a comm check. I was over a barrel, so I took the money I had left and quit. I started up on my own. I went into some of the shippers I'd been hauling out of to try to get some of that freight direct. One traffic manager told me 25,000 in cash to get in the door. Damn, this isn't what I thought the game was. So it was to the load boards. I didn't have $25,000 cash even if I wanted to give it to them. The great internet equalizer, Internet Truck Stop, now truckstop.com, was new. DAT, of course, was there. And I was using anything I could find to get loads that would pay. But now I started to learn the reality of the carrier side, slow paying brokers and shippers. And then 9/11 happened. 30 to 45 day payers became 60 to 90 day payers. Cash flow was pinching me off again. Time to hit the factoring companies. Then the death nail. A broker I'd hauled for a lot had stopped answering the phone. I'm holding 75,000 in unpaid invoices. Gone. Weeks later, the same voice, a voice I recognize, calls me up. New company name, same guy, offering me loads. Refuses to talk about the ones he screwed me on. Are you nuts? I wouldn't haul a sack of potatoes for you, bud. But because I was factoring and this guy hadn't paid me, my clock was ticking. And by the time the factoring company started clawing back the money they'd floated me on those invoices, it was game over. Now, here's the thing. I had drivers, good drivers. Low turnover because I treated them right. The driver shortage didn't kill my business. Parts of the system did, along with some of my bad decisions. The same system that's still churning through operators today. Still claiming there's a shortage while destroying the people trying to make it work. And let me be clear, that pain didn't just land on me. My drivers got hurt. When the money dried up, they didn't get paid everything that they'd earned. And that's the hard truth I carry, because in the end, I wasn't just the guy fighting the system. I was also part of the machine that left people downstream holding part of the bag. Of course, there's a lot more stories to tell about all this, but I don't want to bury the lead. There's parts that I'm proud of, how I treated the drivers, how I largely didn't have much turnover because I treated them well, how hard we worked, I worked, they worked, mostly honest. We followed some of the regulations. Let's just say we were in the gray, not in the black, not lily white either. But there's also embarrassing parts. All the things I didn't know or understand that I needed to really be successful. And the parts that I'm ashamed of, that some people didn't get paid in the end, that there weren't enough assets to cover the losses. And this isn't just an owner-operator story. That's the same way company drivers get chewed up too. Promises made, promises broken, unpaid detention, waiting on settlements, not getting final checks. The system doesn't care whether you're signing the checks or cashing them. If the cash flow dies, drivers usually get stung as well. The parts that stung me the most was the dishonest people that turned me into a person, or that contributed to me becoming a person who didn't keep my promises either, because I couldn't. The people who didn't pay because what were you going to do about it? They got paid for the work that I did. It just never made it to me. The people I thought were partners who weren't. The system has all these rules, contracts, laws, bonds, courts, but in reality, they don't offer any recourse in the real world, not when the other side has more money and resources than you do. I learned that leverage was way more powerful than a handshake. And in the end of all of it, a lot of things didn't seem to make a lot of sense. So I went broke. I went back to school and I worked on getting my degree. A lot of those courses that I took started with accounting. What the heck happened? And how do I understand it so it never happens again? Now, while getting that degree, I ended up working at a large national carrier, and I got to see a whole other side of the machine. And that's when I realized what my little fleet had been up against all along, and what thousands of drivers and owner operators were experiencing through that same machine. It was eye-opening in so many new ways. And each stage in my journey has been illuminating. Eventually, I came back to trucking as an owner operator, but this time I had options. I had two tickets that kept two different worlds open, a CDL and a college degree. Many drivers struggle to acquire an additional option, and that's why this story matters for the driver shortage series. Because whether you're an owner-operator, a small fleet, or a company driver, this machine keeps finding ways to grind it down. So that's what the series is about. Not the lack of drivers, but the system designed to consume them. Let's drop it down to line 4 for a quick break. We'll catch you on the flip side with the post-trip. TrueTMS is a cloud-based transportation management system. Being in the cloud makes integrations faster and you're able to access the platform from anywhere. It has intuitive planning, on-demand reporting, and easy order creation, rating, and invoices, which turns tedious admin work into streamlined automated workflows. The folks at TrueTMS have decades of trucking and liquid experience, and they care about this industry. They don't just sell you a product, they're invested in your success. Visit their website, truetms.com, and of course, tell them Channel 19 sent you.
We're talking trucking life, uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories, and the miles in between. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going, and the lessons that left a mark.
Well, drivers, that's going to do it for this week's run. Maybe it wasn't as quick as I promised, but we covered some miles. From LinkedIn connections that turn into real conversations to four-legged companions who keep us sane. And I shared a piece of my own story, the gray areas, the compromises, the stuff that keeps you up at night for a long time. Next week, the series officially kicks off and been documenting their perspective on what's really happening and the compromises being made. People who bring data, evidence, and courage to the discussion. Don't forget to connect with our friends of the show. Big Cal over at Truckin' with Coffee and Cal. Happy anniversary, big guy, to your page. Saw that you made the 1 year mark. Heck of a lot of content you've produced and a lot of smiles, a lot of prayers, and a lot of blessings passed on. Thank you for all you're doing with your page. Don't forget Barry Trahan over at the 3rd annual Louisiana Truck Show down in Rain, Louisiana. That's in late October, 24th and 25th. Check out his website, louisianatruckshows.com. We've got Lee Owens with his American Truckers Jubilee in Searcy, Arkansas, another October show. We're sponsoring both of those, along with our friends over at TVC Pro Driver, stepping up to help sponsor as well. Mike Ritzema over at Superior Trucking Payroll Services, truckingpayroll.com is his website. Deb Labrie, a womantrucker.com. She's been killing it with her recent blogs. Thank you, Deb. And I-95 Truckers. You know, Al, with your pictures you've been putting up this week, so I picture one day you and I sitting at either a town team baseball game in those wooden bleachers that you took a picture of, or at a race. You pick. Truck show season still rolling. Find them all at thetruckshowlist.com. If you want to be a part of the conversation, especially for this driver shortage series, reach out, inbox at channel19experience.com. And if you're not driving, like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with a friend. Thanks for riding along this week. We've got work to do.
This has been the Channel 19 Experience. If it's about trucking, we're talking about it. All uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories. But we talk about the world of trucking today, too. Everything from legislation to lane changes in the industry. We got it covered. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back at the ranch soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media at Channel 19 Experience and the website at www.channel19experience.com. That's channel and the numbers 19. See you down the road.